What's up, world? I am Thunder Thief, and today we're talking about track 11 on my album Past Amore. This one's called Legend. This is the most important song on my album, by far. It was the first idea that I wrote on my instrument, Stormbreaker, and it's dedicated to my mom and also every other, incredible female that I've lost, and, those loves leave such a gaping hole. My grandmother's, I had an ex-girlfriend who passed away, just before COVID. But this song was mostly done at that time. I had written this in middle of 2019, the first week I got my instrument. And the first thing that you hear in the song is me just it's a result of me just playing my guitar in ways I was just testing her out. Whenever you touch a new instrument, I feel like there's this time of getting to know one another. And these chords are the first thing that we made together. And there's this little tremolo effect at the end that's just supposed to make it kind of a little uncomfortable, a little wobbly, but that's just me strumming different speeds and enjoying the hell out of what I was hearing. And it's a great example of why I fell in love with the tones that I did for this record, because I could hear so many different timbres in the same tone. And the second part that I wrote is this little arpeggiated guitar part that is palm muted, and even though it's the same tone, same everything, I think it comes across in a much different way. I wrote those two things basically one after another and just got lost in that space. I use a lot of syncopated arpeggios in my music, and it's so much fun to have that represented on a guitar or on a hi-hat or on a bass. They're entirely different impacts, even though it's the same rhythm. I wrote the drum beat next because I knew I wanted something that stood up on its own, but was still a dance beat. But because this song is 90 BPM, so it's a slow 4 on the floor tempo, I wanted there to be some fast moving elements to it, and also have the kick and snare relationship sometimes have this percussively curious impact at the end of 4 bars or 8 bars. And this is what holds steady underneath those guitars. And hearing those by themselves, it does have a lot of interesting attitude in there. And at 90 BPM, I think that's hard to do. You're dipping into drum and bass tempos and some hip hop kind of stuff where 4 on the floor isn't really very common or driving. But I wrote this bass line right after I came up with the drums. I wanted something that was badass. I had just spent so long designing this P-bass top, and the pickups that I have in there are very meaty, and the whole instrument itself is very meaty. And I just dug in and tried to make as riffy of a bass line as I could. And that's the basic building blocks of the first half of the track. right there. Honestly, I didn't feel the need to fill it up with a ton of stuff because I like that minimalist approach where you don't need a ton at once, but you just got to make sure everything that's playing is good. And this was an exercise for me in restraint, because the only other thing that I add is this arpeggio synth line. Because we're reaching the middle of the song, I wanted something that could signify like we are moving forward and evolving, growing. And this is the arpeggio that introduces the second half. Things were going pretty well in my life in 2018, 2019. I was building a lot of new things and I had some momentum. Musically, I was playing the most festivals and the most like places I'd ever played. But it's also the same year that my mom died and my grandma died. And learning to live with like the deaths of your loved ones is, I don't think you ever really learn. I think you just do your best. So far, nothing's healed. I've just gotten stronger in other areas to compensate. And at this point in the song, this is the drop off. This is when the foundation just gets torn from out under you and everything changes. And it's funny because I wrote this part like before my mom passed away. And I think a part of me just knew what was coming and wanted to find some sort of catharsis in like that feeling. Thankfully, playing really sad finger style guitar parts is a coping mechanism that I'm used to. And I found this riff. And that progression is the building block and the entire intention of the second half. This song is called Legend, and it's because you don't become one until you die. And it's about this strength and power that is provided when you're alive. And then when that gets taken away, the world's reaction is unpredictable and scary. But there's solace in the fact that you existed, and there's hope that the intentions that you carried with you can carry on through the people that love you. And those who are left just cobble everything together and do their best to live in the spirit of everyone they loved and who they are as a result. And I wanted the instrumentation of the second half to be very choral and harmonious. And it started with the guitar parts that I wrote next. And that one's a pretty simple one. It's a little riffy. It's got some metal influence, but then I wrote this second one in direct response to it. Feels the same. It's a little bit higher. But when you play them together, it is this really cool harmony. That's just me ripping off metal guitar playing and wanting something to be sort of high-pitched and constant. There's an evolution of this guitar part that turns into a synth, which I'll play in a little bit. But once I had that arpeggiated guitar part with these two harmony guitar parts, I just started playing bass in the most random way that I could and ended up writing this bass line after just jamming on that guitar loop for a long time. That thing is just random and starts on off beats and leaves a lot of space for the kick drum for sure, but it's definitely one of the more random bass lines I've cultivated. And then I wrote the drums, which I took partial inspiration from the first half of the song, but I really wanted something that, was here and present, and the groove to go against that bass line sounds like this. And there's a lot of 16th note stuff in there and some swift hits and a lot of different sounds coming at you, but it's all servicing the parts that came before it, but still driving in that intentional sort of way. This is another one of those songs with vocals on it. I went back and forth about having vocals for a long time. I had this chorus in here that I thought was enough. It's very ethereal, really angelic, and I like where it sits. They sound like this. Honestly, listening to that, you can think those are coming from above or below. I think really serene sounds can also have this creepiness to them. And to me, that's what that chorus sounds like. But I decided I didn't just want that. I wanted to have a vocal, and I was listening to this song on a loop for months, asking myself what fit. Should I sing it? Should I have someone else sing it? Should I just pull dialogue from something that I really love? And I started thinking about the dialogue thing, like, well, you know, if you were to pull stuff from like a movie or something that you really enjoy, like what are some movies that you would do? And I thought a lot about The Sandlot. I could not get enough of that movie when I was younger. I used to wear my shirt unbuttoned so I could have it fly or flap in the back like Benny the Jet Rodriguez, because it was the closest you could get to having a cape without looking like an idiot. And there's this line in The Sandlot when Benny's in the house of James Earl Jones and he says, "Heroes get remembered, but legends never die." And I found that very interesting because I had called this song Legend from when I first started writing it. Like, I knew it was going to have that kind of legendary intention and wanted it to be captured that way. And I thought it was so serendipitous that this line happened to have that word in it too. But I didn't want James Earl Jones to be on my track. Like, Darth Vader's fine, but he doesn't belong here. So I decided to sing it.
Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
The more I sing, the better I feel about it. I've been the lead singer of a band for like a year, and that's the most that I've put my voice first. And even still, like, there's a lot of responsibility with putting your voice on something because that is the instrument that everyone has. And I really wanted my voice to stir up something and feel good and sound good on the track and not just have it there for the sake of me singing on it. I give this song credit because this is how I sort of found my voice for the whole album. Like, my speaking voice and my singing voice are different, and learning the variables of what makes them so separate is going to be a lifelong journey. I mean, I'm not singing every day. I'm talking most days, but I'm really grateful that I found my voice here because it helped me get the confidence to sing throughout the rest of the album. And I have a ton of effects on there. I got vocal synth and was playing with that a lot. I really like vocal synthesizer stuff over like traditional vocoders. I guess there's barely any difference, but I really like the timbre of that thing, and it provided a lot of nice artifacts that made me comfortable enough to put my voice on a recording. I mentioned earlier about the synthesizers taking over the guitar parts, and eventually those two guitar parts develop into these two synth parts. Here's the first one. And here's the second one. And the tones of those are like so melody and kind of raindroppy, but when you hear them together, it's like a melodic, like rainforest showering down on you. And I love that those become the thing in front as far as the melody goes, because it is kind of this like warm bath sensation. And the last thing I'm going to talk about in this song is a very simple part, but it's very important to me because it's usually the guitar part that I play in this song when I perform it live. There's a ton of instruments in here, and I'm responsible for a lot of parts throughout performance. So there's always this thought of, okay, what part do I want to be playing during this section of the song? How's the energy? How do I feel? And what are my capacities? Like, do I want to be moving around a lot, or do I want to be standing still and concentrating hard on a part? And this is just one of those things that is steady and acts essentially like a bass line, but it is a guitar part. And it just runs like a steady 16th note alongside some of the fast pace of the drums. And it's the part that I get to play live most times. There's something very comforting about that, and is drawing a little bit of inspiration from my previous album. I have this song called Rise, where it's just a lot of staccato guitars stacked on top of each other. And I really like the way that sounds, because it's essentially like a monophonic synthesizer that you stack in the same way you would do a synth part with like a bunch of layers. And you can only play one at a time. And I think the way a guitar can sound just playing one string is as powerful as playing all six with the right execution. This is the second to last song on my album, but I think about it like this is the last song. It's a proclamation of love and everlasting effect that someone who inspires you can have on you for the rest of your life. And I think it's important to live in honor of those who came before you, who gave a shit about what you're doing. There's family and loved ones. Well, there's family and then there's loved ones. And when you have people that are awesome enough to be both, they deserve to live through you, not in a controlling way, but in a way where like their spirit operates still inside of you. And I think that's when you reach legend status, is when your life stops, but your intentions and spirit permeate throughout the world in whatever scale that it does. You can be a legend to one person, you can be a legend to hundreds of millions. The number doesn't matter, it's the effect. So I hope you enjoy it. This is Legend.
Heroes get remembered. legends never die.